Bonjour classe. Maintenant, j'ai les objectifs pour Unité 3, Leçon 8. So here are our objectives for Unit 3, Lesson 8. I can identify question words. This is carrying on from what we did in the last chapter, just adding a bit more vocabulary and reinforcing that. I can respond to and make information questions, again, taking those question words and turning them into questions that you would like to ask, as well as recognizing and being able to answer them appropriately. And finally, using the verb faire, which means to do or make. On va commencer avec l'identification de mots interrogatifs. So, in the last lesson, we talked about some common question words, and you've been practicing these in terms of being able to interpret and identify them in the various videos and stories that we've read over the past few weeks. Qui is one, qui, who, qui. Où is another one, où, which means where. Et voilà, il y a ici une liste plus compréhensive pour vous. Alors, ici, les expressions interrogatives où, quand, à quelle heure, comment, pourquoi, et parce que. So whenever you see pourquoi, why, you'll want to be on the lookout for parce que or know that you can answer with parce que. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about these, and then as we look through the examples, I imagine that you're realizing that you have seen these before. Okay, so we're going to review now how to respond to and make information questions. So the first kind of expression for questions is est-ce que, which is a yes/no question. Okay, oui, no, as a est-ce que is a yes/no question. And to make questions, to make yes/no questions, or to recognize them, I should say, voilà le formule. Okay, so there's 3 different ways that you can do this. The first one is est-ce que plus the subject plus the verb. And as you can see in the little box down below, I've given a real example. Okay, but first I'm just going to go over the actual formula. So est-ce que plus subject plus verb. And then you could also use, to make a yes/no question, you don't necessarily need est-ce que. Like number 2, you can use intonation, just the sound of your voice, raising your voice. Or you could use inversion. You could put the verb first. You could invert the subject and the verb, put the verb first and the subject second. So here are my examples. So, est-ce que tu nages? Est-ce que tu nages? So by using est-ce que is a great way for you as a language learner to a new French speaker to make questions, because it signals to the person that you're talking to that, hey, a question's coming. It's not just I'm raising my voice because I'm insecure about what I'm saying. It's I'm asking you a question. So it kind of gives the person you're talking to a heads up about what's coming next. So, est-ce que tu nages? Do you swim? And these are all going to be answered yes or no. Okay. Est-ce que tu nages? Oui, je nage. No, je ne nage pas. Or you could use simple intonation. Tu nages. Tu nages. You can raise the sound of your voice at the end. You swim. Or you could use inversion. Nages-tu? Nages-tu? Swim you? Okay, do you swim? So they all mean the same thing. They're all getting at, they want a yes/no answer. Okay. If you want to ask information questions, the formule pour question d'information, you're really just adding in the question word. Okay, that's all you're doing. So if you want to, the wordiest one, I guess, is the first one. Your question word plus est-ce que plus the subject plus the verb. So if you look at my first example, où est-ce que tu nages? Où est-ce que tu nages? Where do you swim? Où est-ce que tu nages? Je nage en vacances. Je ne nage pas au restaurant. Okay, so you put that question word in front. Again, when you're listening, you really want to listen for the question word at the beginning. Okay, most of the time in a more formal question. You could also use intonation. Tu nages où? Okay, so in that case, you're taking the subject plus the verb plus the question word at the end. Tu nages où? You swim where? Yes, it is more informal, but the meaning is still the same. You're wanting the information, you're using a question word. So it's completely acceptable. It's more common in spoken, informal spoken French, but you can it's not incorrect. Okay, tu nages où? And then the last one, inversion, où nages-tu? Où nages-tu? This is probably the most formal in terms of when you would use it and when you would hear it. It's a little bit trickier to invert the subject and the verb, and so it's something that you see more in writing, or if you're listening to, perhaps someone being interviewed on the news or something like that. It's a bit more formal. La formule pour qui, okay, what does qui mean again? Qui, who, okay. The formula for who is just a tiny bit different. In this case, you're just going to put the question word, qui, plus the verb. Qui parle, who's talking, who speaks. Qui est, who is it? All right. Pourquoi c'est différent pour qui? Why do we have a kind of a different formulation for qui? Parce que qui est aussi un pronom sujet, comme il, elle ou on. Tu peux faire un échange. So qui can actually be replaced by a subject pronoun, right? Like if you're looking under my first example, qui parle, il parle, elle parle, you can replace it. So that's why, okay? So who's talking? It's very similar to English, but just know that you don't need the esca when you're using a question word with qui. This is a list that you want to take note of. This is kind of a comprehensive list of all of the different question words that we have come into contact with this first year. That doesn't mean they've all been expressly taught, okay? This means that they may not have been taught separately before, but we have learned lots of expressions where we've talked about all of these different words. So these ones here are ones that I have expressly gone over, either through repetition or giving you the direct translation or using as multiple examples in class or in these videos. Now, I'm sure you're looking at the second one and thinking, that doesn't sound familiar to me. But if you look at the first one, esca, okay, which I just finished talking about, the second one down, qu'est-ce que. And this is one that I use a lot to ask you guys questions, okay? And generally by someone's gesture or context, you understand what it means. So esca is do or does, signals that question is coming. Qu'est-ce que, okay, with that QU in front, that means what, okay? Qu'est-ce que tu fais? What are you doing? Qu'est-ce que tu manges? What are you eating? Okay? And then we have où, and then we have qui. Those are the ones we've really focused on, okay, that I want you to focus on. The rest you have seen and we will see again, okay? So I don't want you to be overly concerned about these. Pourquoi, okay? Quand, we saw that in terms of when you're talking about yourself. Quand est ton anniversaire? Quand est ton anniversaire? When? Comment? How? Comment ça va? We also saw this in comment, I could ask you, comment est-ce que tu nages? Comment est-ce que tu chantes? How do you swim? How do you sing? How well do you sing? Or how do you do it? Oh, je chante mal, mais je nage bien. Okay, I sing badly, but I swim well. Okay, so como is one that you can see in those kind of contexts. And then à quelle heure, at what time, which we saw in the time chapter. But I've highlighted those ones in the box because those are the ones that we're going to focus on the most, just to finish out this chapter this year. Okay, lastly, the verb faire, to do or to make. C'est un verbe facile à prononcer. Okay, so I'm giving you some tips here. It's easy. You'll see it a lot. C'est un verbe irrégulier, comme être. So what do I mean by that? I mean that if you look at how it's conjugated, if you look at the forms for the different subject pronouns, it doesn't look all neat and tidy like the verbs parler and manger and nager and travailler, right? It's a little bit different. So it's considered an irregular verb. So we have faire, which means to do or to make. Je fais, tu fais, elle fait, il fait, nous faisons, vous faites, elles font, ils font. Regarde comme le singulier a la même prononciation, fait. So notice that there is a spelling difference on the singular side, but they are all pronounced the same. Je fais, tu fais, il fait, elle fait. Ça va? Regarde ici quelques expressions avec faire. C'est un verbe très utile et très commun en français. Okay, and we will spend a lot more time with it as we go forward in French because it is a great catch-all verb. If you cannot remember the exact verb or the exact expression to use, you can use faire to as kind of a, like in Monopoly, they had the get out of jail free card. Faire is kind of like that in French. So, for example, if you look on the left-hand side here, je fais du ski. Okay, so there is a verb skier. Okay, and you could say je skie. But you can also say, I do skiing. Je fais du ski. The second one, tu fais attention. You pay attention. Okay, I say that in class all the time. Fais attention, fais attention. Okay, so pay attention, fais attention. The third one down, il fait son lit. Il fait son lit. He makes his bed. Elle fait une faute. Elle fait une faute. Oh, regarde comment. She makes a mistake. Ici, au pluriel, nous faisons un voyage. We take a trip. We make a trip. We're doing a trip. Yes, you could say nous voyageons, okay? But this is another way to say that. Nous faisons un voyage. Vous faites vos devoirs. Vous faites vos devoirs. Devoir means homework. If you'll notice on the homepage of our Canvas class, I have le garçon triste, le garçon qui pleure, okay? And over that it says devoir, okay? Parce que devoir is homework, okay? So vous faites vos devoirs, you do your homework. Ils font la vaisselle, they do the dishes, ils font la vaisselle. Et, oh, je dois arrêter de toucher l'écran. Le dernier exemple, elles font une pizza. Elles font une pizza. They make a pizza. Okay, elles font une pizza. Alors, nous allons concentrer sur la gauche. Okay, as with most verbs, as we're starting out in first and second year, you use mostly the singular side. Okay, but we are just going to practice a little bit with faire. Just so you're able to recognize it and kind of have it in your vocabulaire. And I am going to put this video into Canvas, another cheesy video to help you learn the verb faire as well. Okay, so these are the goals for this unit. Identifying question words, responding to and making information questions, and using the verb faire. Okay, and we'll have the exercises and the tasks I have in this chapter and the next one will allow you to practice those skills. Okay, merci beaucoup.